Today we will be talking about China's infrastructure. Specifically, we will look at the improvements China has made to their infrastructure in recent years that has helped set them apart from the rest of the world. We will look at how China's new Silk Road project will propel China into the future. And finally, we will compare China's infrastructure to that of the United States and look at what both countries need to do in the future in order to stay ahead. Between 2001 and 2004, investment in rural roads grew by a staggering 51% per year in China. This growth has slightly tapered off in recent years, but China now has nearly 3 million miles of roadway. Their original goal was to reach this 3 million mile mark by 2020, but now it appears that they will get there sooner than that. The reason for this massive investment in expanding roadways is twofold. First, domestic consumption has been on the rise in China, and in order to accommodate for this, China has had to increase freight and truck transportation in order to meet consumer demand. Consumers expect their goods to be delivered quicker and cheaper than ever before. This has forced China to improve existing roadways throughout the country while adding new roads that were not originally there. The second reason for this massive roadway growth is that China is the largest car market in the world and has more drivers than there are people in the United States. More and more Chinese citizens are abandoning their bike and taking to the streets in their cars. Yet even with the expansion in roads and highways, China still struggles to accommodate for the number of drivers that use their roads daily. There have been multiple instances of traffic jams that have lasted days in some of the busier parts of China. In 2015, China spent $126 billion on new railroad tracks. They were able to get 9,000 kilometers of new track operational. China plans to invest another 3.8 trillion yuan, or $538 billion, in new railway construction between 2016 and 2020. China wants to have 150,000 kilometers of railroads and 30,000 kilometers of high-speed railroads by 2020. This will give them more railroads than any other country in the entire world. Their eventual goal is to link any city with over 200,000 people and to reduce the commute between these cities to less than 8 hours. China's largest infrastructure project is to rebuild the Silk Road, also known as their One Belt, One Road project. This ancient road was created during the Han Dynasty and allowed the Chinese to trade with the Roman Empire. They were able to exchange goods such as silk and spices. China is now trying to rebuild and modernize this road. The road will connect over 65 different countries, and the Asia Development Bank estimates that Asia needs $8 trillion to fund the infrastructure construction for the entire road. This project will allow China to access a part of the world that they had not been heavily involved in the past. Many of these countries are still developing, and by giving them access to China's resources, China will be able to continue to grow their economy. China was left out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which included many of their major trade partners. This new Silk Road would allow China to branch out into a new region of the world. In just 30 years, China has developed from a poor, inward-looking country to a global powerhouse. China is one of the largest economies in the world, and it is through their infrastructure that this is possible. As their growth begins to slow down, the One Belt, One Road project poses a new opportunity for China to continue to grow and expand throughout the world.
U.S. infrastructure. China has overtaken the U.S. as the world's wealthiest country measured by the value of its built environment, according to the latest Global Built Asset Wealth Index. For the first time, built asset wealth in the U.S. no longer leads the world. With wealth of $36.8 trillion, the U.S. now trails China at $47.6 trillion. The U.S. built asset stock is largely unchanged in the past 2 years, while since 2000, China has invested $33 trillion in built assets. As China infrastructure continues to grow and make into a powerhouse country, the U.S. is struggling. U.S. transportation infrastructure requires substantial capital investment because many of the highways and bridges built decades earlier are now reaching the end of their expected lifespan. For the last few decades, the nation has benefited from investments from the Eisenhower era through the 1980s. But as these investments fade away, America needs to look into a new solution for its problems. Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, and Marco Rubio had very little in common during the primary election, except they all agreed that the state of the U.S. infrastructure is unacceptable. The American Society of Civil Engineers most recently gave America a D+ rating in terms of infrastructure. But while Republicans and Democrats agree that something should be done, there's little consensus on where funding should come from and which projects should receive priority. One of the projects receiving priority that will affect the TCU community is a new bullet train that will take the engineering from the Chinese to take Texans from Houston to Dallas in under an hour. Many more projects are being made, but the issue is, where will the U.S. get funding? Looking into the future, the entire world faces a large infrastructure challenge. McKinsey & Company estimates that the world will require $57 trillion in new infrastructure by 2030. Infrastructure development is a top priority for growing countries, as they have recognized that a modern economy runs on reliable roads and rails, electricity, and telecommunications. China is one of those countries that, rather than being content with where they are currently, they plan to continue to focus on infrastructure growth and automation. The Yangshan Deepwater Port, located in Shanghai, China, ranks as the largest cargo port in the world. Yangshan Port is a port of the Hangzhou Bay south of Shanghai. Built to circumvent growth limitations for the Port of Shanghai as a result of shallow waters, it allows berths with depths of up to 15 meters to be built and is capable of handling the largest container ships today. The port achieves this by building on the offshore islands of Greater and Lesser Yangshan. While this port is the largest cargo port in the world, the Chinese believe that it can be better. They will make this port faster and more efficient by implementing a system they call Phase 4. Shanghai is starting the fourth phase of the Yangshan Deepwater Port. The port handling capacity will reach 6.3 million containers by 2017. The fourth phase will adopt the latest automatic system to manage the port. The automatic system will allow a larger capacity of containers. After the completion of the fourth phase, the Shanghai port will have an annual capacity of 40 million 20-foot units, the standard unit for describing a ship's cargo carrying capacity. Phase 4 will completely automate the system for the new part of the port, and eventually they plan to implement this automation to the rest. China is not stopping there. China is accelerating 300 infrastructure projects valued at 7 trillion yuan, or 1.1 trillion US dollars. The projects will be funded by the central and local governments, state-owned firms, loans, and the private sector. The investment will be in 7 industries, including oil and gas pipelines, health, clean energy, transportation, and mining. The key to the future is infrastructure.